Hey guys, it's week 4. We are ready to rock and roll on the mountain. We're having a great time on our locks. We're 10-4. I know Steve's got several today, and he is ready to rock and roll. We're going to start with the Big Ten. We're going to go into the Mountain West, and of course, we picked the Pac-12, and they will be the Pac-12 for 2 more years. So I'm going to keep calling them that, Steve. So Big Ten, you're up. Let's go.
Yeah, awesome. We got 13 games I'm picking this week, and I'm starting right here at Nebraska's Memorial Field. They play Friday night. They announced their 400th consecutive shutout, or not shutout, sellout of the stadium, which is pretty amazing. So Friday night, Illinois at Nebraska. I'm taking Nebraska to cover the 8.5. I'm high on both of these teams. I love the way Illinois has played so far. And JY, I was high on Nebraska coming into this season. Matt Rule's second year. What I said last year, they were a good team last year. Good defense, good special teams. They had terrible quarterback play last year. And they just needed a little bit better. And they've gotten that so far with Dylan Raiola. Even though he's a true freshman, he's given them exactly what they need. The line 8.5, I like it. I like them to cover. I feel like they'll win this game by about 10 points. So I'm not quite ready to lock it at this point, but I like this line. And here's the thing. Here's the deal. You like when I tell you what the deal is.
Hey, it's the first game. It's got to be the deal already, for crying out loud.
Both of these teams do a lot of the same things in a good way. Play good defense, play good special teams. I think they're both well coached. Nebraska just does everything that Illinois does a little bit better and has a little bit better quarterback play, and they're at home. Great atmosphere Friday night. So I like Nebraska to win by 10 points and cover that 8.5.
Yeah, some of our commenters saying, Nebraska over Illinois, but likely close. John says here, we're going to see what these two teams are made of. This is a great matchup because two teams that seem to be kind of on their way up in the Big Ten. I know, Steve, like you said, you're really high on Nebraska here. And I agree with you. I think 8.5 to 9.5, 10.5 is an appropriate line here for this game. I'm not surprised being at the low end of that, the 8.5, that you're not taking Nebraska because you are high on them. But this is a good test for both teams. Our commenters seem to agree with that. I like your pick, but I'm also interested to see what these teams have in this game because it could be a real good close game here in the Big Ten.
I'm looking forward to it. For a Friday night game, we couldn't ask for too much better. So
yeah, for sure.
All right. So rolling right into Saturday, the big noon game this week is Marshall at Ohio State. Ohio State's a 39.5 point favorite, and I'm taking Ohio State to cover that 39.5 points. It's a big line. They're a lot better than Marshall, and they can beat Marshall by 50 or more if they wanted to. So I'm going to take them to cover, but I'm definitely not locking. If they really want to do it, they could do it. But I just hate lines that are this big. But Ohio State's rolling. I mean, everything that we said that they needed to do coming into the season, they're doing. They have good quarterback play. They're good on both on the lines on both offense and defense. I mean, they're rolling right along. They've had an easy schedule, and they're continuing to have an easy schedule with Marshall. They're going to be able to do whatever they want with Marshall. So I am taking Ohio State to cover the 39.5, but definitely not locking that.
Sure, understand.
Okay, so the next game here, let's see, Charlotte at Indiana. This is another team that we were high on coming into the season with Curt Cignetti coming in there. I told everybody he's going to be taking the Big Ten by storm. He is the mad scientist of offense in the Big Ten. This team is just doing everything right. They're running the ball. They're throwing the ball. Curtis Rourke looks like maybe the best quarterback in the Big Ten, honestly. There's maybe some guys that have a little bit more talent than him, but he is just the maestro of this offense and just doing great. So anyways, taking Indiana to cover the 28.5. And again, because it's a big line, I'm not going to lock it, but I feel very confident in taking Indiana to cover that 28.5 points.
Yeah, that's I mean, it's a big line, but I'll tell you what, I think Indiana rolls here. I'll be honest. I would not hesitate for those looking. I know it's not a lock yet, and Steve will get to his locks. I know he has some, but I'd be pretty confident in this line. Indiana's looking so good right now offensively. Charlotte's not going to put up too much of a fight. It's at home there with Indiana. Yeah, I like this line. I know I'm going to bet it, even if it's not. Again, you're a lock for you. I like this line.
Yeah, and I think Kurt Signetti has shown in just these 3 games that he wants to send a message. He's not taking his foot off the gas. They are going until the final whistle, trying to score points and let everybody know what they're about. So, all right, moving on to the next game. Villanova at Maryland. I'm taking Maryland to cover the 17.5. I'm a little down on Maryland this season.
Yeah.
We've had a little pushback from some of the fans on that. They're missing Talia from last year. That was going to be a huge blow to their offense, but they played relatively well. So I'm slightly down on them. However, Villanova is just not a good team. It's at home. And Maryland has shown us the last 3 or 4 years is early in the season against these bad teams. They've done what they need to do. So I am taking Maryland to cover that 17.5, but I don't know if this is a game that I'll bet.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. If is there enough offense there to put up the points to be able to cover that? I know it's a Villanova team, but I know you're hesitant on Maryland. So the safer pick, I agree, that Big Ten team versus a Villanova team. But if you're hesitant on the offense, it's kind of hard to be overly confident for sure.
Yeah, and I could see Maryland winning this game by 20 points, like a 30-10 or whatever, and just covering, but not enough confidence to lock it. All right, moving along to the next game. I will be at this game. Kent State at Penn State. Kent State might be the worst FBS team, so I'm taking Penn State to cover the 48.5 points. I know that's a ton of points. Definitely not going to lock something that with that many points. And Penn State did not perform as well against Bowling Green as many people expected them. They did not cover. Well, Bowling Green was a whole different animal. They brought in a bunch of transfers. They played really well. They're going to do some damage in the MAC this year. But this Kent State team, just awful. I think Tennessee might have put up 55 on them in the first half, ended up winning by, I think, 70-0 or something like that. And honestly, I think Tennessee could have scored 100. So I feel very confident in Penn State covering this 48.5. Not quite enough to lock it just because it's such a huge, stupid line, and you never know when they're going to take the foot off the gas. But and I've seen a stat floating around. I think since James Franklin has gotten there, Penn State is 4-0 against the spread whenever it's been a 40-point or more spread. Basically, when they are supposed to put up big points against these weak teams, they do it. So I'm going to be there. I'm going to see the game. It's the Military Appreciation Day game. You can see Beaver Stadium white out behind me right now. And I feel pretty darn good about Penn State to cover this 48.5.
Okay, well, you are one of the few, at least listening to us live, because we have some commenters, just kind of commenting here. Massive spread by 31. No way, and he's a Penn State fan. So I would be hesitant based on their lost outing. That is a ton of points. I get you, Steve, and I'll trust you on Penn State. As I told our viewers before, I will trust Steve on Penn State, but I am hesitant based on that last outing. This is so many points. I don't care who the team is. That's a ton of points. But I get you. I hope the best for you, because I love when you win, because then we all.
Yeah, it is a lot of points, and I get it. There's a little bit of a hangover. I don't think there's a hangover for the team because they had a bye week. There's a hangover for the fans thinking, maybe they got burned. They touched that hot stove and got burned with the Bowling Green game, but I don't think this is going to be a problem. And honestly, they may come close to covering this in the first half. Kent State, just a bad team. But moving on here, Rutgers at Virginia Tech. This is going to be this is my first one of the night. I am locking Rutgers plus 3.5 as they travel to Virginia Tech, and I'm making that a Big Mountain ice cold lock.
I told you they were coming.
Yeah, I got 3 of them. This is the first of 3.
Okay.
Here's the deal with this one, JY.
I want to know.
Honestly, I have no idea why this line is where it is. I know Virginia Tech was kind of a darling coming into the season. A lot of people picked them high, and people are always down on Rutgers. That's just the way it goes. That's just the story of being Rutgers, because when you have so many past years of poor performance, people continue to expect that. But Rutgers, I think, is a solid team this year. They're playing well. They're doing what they need to do. Not only am I yeah, I mean, I made this a Big Mountain Ice Cold lock for the Rutgers plus 3.5. But I'm personally betting this on the money line as well. I like Rutgers to win this game straight up. I don't think Vegas has adjusted yet to Rutgers. They have the leading rusher in the Big Ten. They have an improved offense. I like Greg Schiano has every year since he's been there, he's increased the talent level all across the roster. So I feel really good about this one.
I agree. I think this was the one you jumped on early, even on Monday or Sunday night, I think it was when the lines came out, and said, this is crazy. Jump on this as soon as you can. And I'm not sure it's really even changed that much from when you said, to hop on it. And I'm with you. I'm actually surprised that Rutgers is getting points in this game. Like, I have this a complete flip flop of whatever would that be, 7 points. I would think they'd be giving 3.5.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And, Vegas sometimes knows stuff. And, I don't know. It's like I say, sometimes these lines that you feel are too good to be true are too good to be true. But this one, man, I don't get it. I'm hard with you on that lock. I think it's a great lock for you for sure.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, let's see. The thing about it is, sometimes Vegas at the beginning of the seasons, they have those preconceived notions about teams, from previous years. And I think that might be the case again. And last year we found a bunch of value. We picked against Purdue because they were coming off of a Big Ten championship game appearance, and Vegas was giving them all kinds of credit, and they were awful last year, just like we said. And I think this is just another case of Vegas underestimating Rutgers, just like they underestimated Indiana. They underestimated Nebraska, and I think we're going to continue to see that trend. Okay. Oh, do you have something on that?
I was just going to say, so I know Anthony's on here. He mentioned after our last pick episode last week, I know specifically he loved your locks and did well off of some of your picks. So here's the first lock, Anthony. I know John said he has some betting money burning a hole in his pocket. So I would recommend John maybe put some of that money on the Rutgers yards. And John also says, wow, Rutgers is going to win big. So he agrees with you. This is a good pick right here. So where are we going next, Steve?
Yeah, and last thing for him, if he's looking at betting this game, not only I'm locking the line, but I'm also my personal bet, not an official bet recommendation pick that I'm giving you guys, but I'm on the money line as well. Just wanted to let everybody know. So my next game this has to be the biggest game in the Big Ten this week, possibly across the country. USC visiting the Big House, visiting Michigan, and I am taking USC to cover 5.5 at Michigan as a Big Mountain ice cold lock.
That's awesome. 2 in a row there, Steve.
Yeah, 2 in a row. I love this as a lock. For me, honestly, on a neutral field, I think USC is probably 10 to 14 points better than Michigan right now. USC is they're incredibly talented, and they've always had talent. That's never been a problem. The biggest problem with them the last few years is getting their defense to do anything. Well, this year they bring in Danton Lynn. They had the talent before; they just couldn't get that talent lined up properly half the time. Well, this year, boy, they're lined up and they are hitting hard. I love how the defense looks. Miller Moss, I think, is again one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten. He's been running that offense. They got skill position players all over the field that are very talented. And the thing about Michigan is Michigan still has a solid defense. Will Johnson is maybe the best just cover corner in the entire nation, but they only got one of him. They do have a good defensive line. I think USC just has too many weapons they can threaten Michigan's defense with. And honestly, Michigan's offense, it looks like Alex Orji is going to get the start. They're probably going to a power run game. I just don't see them generating anywhere near enough offense to stay with USC. I don't think this will be quite as bad as the butt whooping that Texas came in and laid on them. And honestly, I think USC is maybe a poor man's version of Texas, very talented all across the board at every position, but maybe just not quite at that level as Texas. So not quite the butt whooping, but I think a smaller butt whooping will ensue. So that's why I went ahead and locked USC to cover the 5.5.
All right. Well, we after this week, Steve, we're going to be doing some of our updated power rankings, and depending on how USC, does in this game, You can see them shooting up the Big Mountain Power rankings. We'll get that out early next week as well. But they are one of the hot tickets here in the Big Ten. And it just seems like, and you said this from the beginning, it just seems like Michigan's still just trying to figure things out, especially on offense. Really just trying to figure things out versus a team that is new to the Big Ten, wants to make some waves, already really has. I mean, they've already, that LSU game was fantastic there. So they've made a name for themselves and they want to keep going. And certainly beating Michigan or putting a little bit of a spanking, as you say, on Michigan would really advance that for them. So huge game here.
If they could come into the big house and win, let's say by double digits, by 10, 10, 12 points, honestly, they would have the best resume in the Big Ten. If you just looked at, who they beat, how they performed, if they can pull that off, they'd have the best resume so far through 4 weeks in the Big Ten.
JEH always likes to remind us that the USC stole a few beeves, the middle linebacker, the safety. It was the Arnold brothers. So we'll see what happens here. But another good pick. That's 2 locks in a row, Steve. Where are you going next?
Yeah, okay. So going next, Northwestern at Washington. I was down a little bit on both of these teams this year. Northwestern, I just don't think they have the talent, and Washington is still rebuilding. So I'm taking Washington.
Steve, I think we were going to do them last.
Oh, my fault. I apologize.
You're on UCLA LSU.
Okay, yeah, I think I moved the wrong game there. So my apologies. UCLA at LSU. I'm taking LSU to cover the 24.5. I just think that UCLA is just not a good team this year. They're completely rebuilding. They have problems on all around the field at the quarterback position, on defense, on offense, on the lines. And LSU's taken a few lumps, but LSU has a ton of talent. They have one of the best offensive lines in the country. I think they're going to be a little pissed off. They just had a very tight game against South Carolina. They lost that game to USC earlier. This one is at home. I just think LSU is they're just a lot more talented, and they're going to have a lot of motivation to put a butt whooping on somebody. So LSU to cover the 24.5, just a straight up pick.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that the line's this big, quite frankly. I mean, especially after I know LSU has a really good team and their games were close, but with their record and stuff, I was surprised that this line's maybe as big as it is. I like the pick. I like LSU here for sure. I'm just a little surprised maybe that the line's this big.
I think that's just a reflection on. I mean, UCLA is just not good. I mean, you saw what happened with Hawaii, and Hawaii has struggled since then. They're just they need a lot of work.
Yeah, good point.
Okay, so now I think I think we're moving on to Iowa at Minnesota.
Yep.
Okay, so Iowa at Minnesota. My heart's been broken before, but I'm making it vulnerable again. I'm taking Iowa to cover the 2.5. Minnie is not a good team this year. They did get their running back back, but other than him, I struggle to see where they're going to get points from. I don't like their defense. Iowa's offense has again let us down a couple times this year, like they did last year. But overall, I just think they're the better team. It is at Minnesota. I'm taking Iowa to cover the 2.5 just because, I think Iowa will win and it'll be a close game and it'll be single digits. So I'm comfortable that I'm covering that 2.5. If it was over a field goal, if it was 4 or 5 points, then I don't know if I'd even be comfortable there. So I think Iowa is a better team. It's just that their offense. I could see this being a 13-10 game with Iowa getting the win. So I am comfortable taking that, but I don't know if I'm going to personally bet this game again, just because I've had my heart broken by Iowa so many times over the last couple of years.
Wow, I'm a little surprised to hear that because you were pretty big on Iowa here preseason. They had that disappointing comeback loss, I guess, against Iowa State, and so I'm a little surprised. I think early on preseason, if you saw this game was 3.5 or 2.5, you'd probably be pretty giddy about it, but maybe not so much right now. Am I wrong?
I still think Iowa's going to end up with a good record, and a lot of that is because of their schedule, like we talked about. I probably would have, and because I was thinking that Iowa would have better quarterback play this year with Cade McNamara coming back and being healthy, but unfortunately, it's just been okay, and their offense has still continued to struggle. So I think, just on paper, I think Iowa is a better team than Minnesota. A touchdown favorite, they should be, but I just don't trust that offense. So I am taking them to cover that 2.5, but just not enough confidence that I'm going to put my actual money on it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and some people are saying under. I'll tell you, we won a lot of money a year ago on unders with Iowa. So I don't know what the under is, but yeah, I'll tell you what. Usually, you get some safe picks on unders when Iowa's playing a football game. So we'll see what happens.
Well, Kirk Ferentz was suspended the first game and was not there. They actually performed pretty well. In the Iowa State game, they got a lead, and then they just said, we're going to take the air out of the ball.
Right.
And it came back to burn them.
Yeah.
I could just see Ferentz doing this again. I could see them getting up 10-3 or something, or 13-3, and then him just saying, okay, we're just going to run out the clock. We're going to run out the clock. And then Minnie getting a late score to make it close or something.
Okay.
Okay, so the next game, Michigan State at Boston College. I'm taking Boston College to cover the 6.5. I love the way this Bill O'Brien of the Magnificent Butt Chin, how his team is playing. Yeah, I see that right there. That Magnificent Butt Chin that he's got. I love the way his team is playing. This dude is just a great football coach. When you've seen what he did at Penn State, and honestly, his first few years at Houston were awesome. The team
Yeah.
did well, was winning the division. Even they were going through quarterbacks quarterbacks were dropping like flies due to injury. And it wasn't until late in his time with the Texans when they threw the ownership changes were crazy. They were going through a weird ownership change, and they basically gave him the general manager tag. And then it didn't work out, and he got run out of town. But since then, he's done well in coordinator positions. He's just a good football coach. When you look at this Boston College team compared to the last few years, they look like a totally different team. Their quarterback, is it Castellanos? Fantastic. I think he might have been a transfer from Florida State. He's super athletic, loves to run around, can make plays with his feet, make plays with his arm, buys himself time, and the team is just well coached. And I'm just not sold that Michigan State is there yet. I think it's going to take them some time to develop. So it's in Boston. So I feel really comfortable. I think they win by at least a touchdown, 7 to 10 point range. So that's why I took Boston College to cover the 6.5 points.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, they look pretty good, and I'm a fan of Bill O'Brien as well. So he knows he's a good football coach. He knows how to get a team going. And yeah, I think that's the safer bet. I will say I maybe should have started off with this. We are very favorite heavy. Where you're going to see a lot of giving points from both you and I this evening. This is week 4. This is really the final week before we start getting into real, true conference play. And I know for me, you have some good games. The Rutgers Virginia Tech game, very solid game. Nebraska Illinois, that's in conference, but that's a good game. This MSU Boston College game could be really well. I have honestly, I got some stinkers, so I'm ready to start getting into in conference games here for me. But I know you have a few more here, Steve. So where are we at next?
Yeah, so my next game is Purdue traveling out to Corvallis to take on the Beavs of Oregon State, and I'm taking Oregon State to cover the 5.5 points, and this is my third and final Big Mountain ice cold lock.
Damn. Third one for Steve. And you're going back to the Beavs. I sent you a text. I said, "Ooh, Stevie, I know what happened with the Beavs last week when you went with them, but you're feeling good about them again. You're sticking with them. One week should not just kind of throw off what you have teams rated. Everybody can have a bad week and this or that. And Oregon just woke up finally and all that kind of jazz. So explain your pick here a little bit, Steve, because I'm going to be picking this game later with my picks as well.
So here's the deal with this game, all right?
Yes.
So Oregon just had more talent than Oregon State. I mean, that's just the way it is. Nobody can question that, I don't think. And Oregon had, they had underperformed coming in. They had some injuries on the O-line, whatever. And yeah, they finally woke up. But I believe the fundamentals of this Oregon State Beavers team are still solid, still a strong team as far as just, running the ball, power run game, playing good defense. And honestly, there's not a lot of good that I think you can say about Purdue. Hudson Card, I think he's a solid quarterback, and he's performed okay this year. But I just think they're just not a talented team. They're just not a good team. Traveling to the West Coast, going to Corvallis is not easy. I just don't have a lot of faith in Purdue. Their talent level is not there. I think their offense is going to struggle against the Beavs defense. And I don't know if they can hold up to the Beavs power run game. It's just there's not a lot that Purdue does well right now. Um, I have the Beavs winning this easily by a touchdown, maybe 10 points, get into the double digits. And so that's why I felt very comfortable locking at 5.5. If I was handicapping this, I'd probably make it a 9.5. I'd probably go 9.5. So that's why I was really comfortable locking at 5.5.
Awesome. A lot of commenters are agreeing with you. Of course, your buddy JEH is, but a lot of everybody else. Jerry, I know that Brent, Bill, Anthony, everybody's really liking a bounce back game here, and your pick and your lock with the Beavs. And so, yeah, there you got 3 locks from Steve, and he's got, I think, 2 more games to go.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. Next here. Okay, this one. Cal traveling to Florida State. I'm going to go ahead. My heart's been broken before, but I'm going to take Florida State to cover the 2.5 points. Definitely not making this a lock. And here's the thing. On paper, Florida State is just a better team than Cal. Now, Cal went in recently. They went into Auburn, beat Auburn, and Florida State has struggled. I think we're finally at the point with Florida State where if it's not working, they're going to be willing to pull DJU, try something different. I think they're a better team. And it's not easy traveling from the West Coast all the way over, almost all the way to the East Coast. Tallahassee is like very close to that, the line between East and Central Time Zone. I think it's a little bit west of Tallahassee, but it's very hard to travel. They did it once, Cal did it once, and I get that. But for them to do it again in a short period of time, and I just don't think they have enough talent. I think Florida State finally wakes up, gets their first victory, and the line is small. I mean, even if this is a coin flip game, and if we're saying it's a coin flip game, Florida State's at home, 3-point advantage usually. The line is 2.5, and so that's what I think Vegas is basically saying. Hey, this is a coin flip game. So I said I was going to pick every Florida State game, so I'm picking them to cover. I'm not putting any of my own money on this game, though. Not getting my heart broken again.
I am surprised. I texted you. I went, oh my gosh, Steve, you're going back to FSU. I was surprised you picked them. I know it's only 2.5, but my goodness, there's nothing on this offense that makes me think they can win anything right now. And you're going to hear me say this with some of my picks. When I'm down on an offense, I am currently here in week 4 on the show me before I will bet you line here. I'm not going to bet. I'm not going to bet against how they're playing right now. And to me, I get what you're saying on paper and but my gracious, they're a freaking hot mess. Holy cow.
So I've watched all the Florida State games so far this year, and I've watched a lot of them. And the weird thing is so they have a lot of plays on offense where the play is set up and it should work. And either DJU's making just a weird throw, or in some cases not on him. He's hitting receivers right on the hands, and they're dropping it. And it's like they drop it, and the second that it hits their hands, they're like, oh, I dropped it. It's so strange. They're just out of sync. So for me, either DJU gets right or they're going to replace him, and we see that with teams where they get another quarterback in, and that's the spark they need. All of a sudden, people start catching passes, they start making their blocks, whatever. So that's what I'm feeling with Florida State. We'll see, but it was a 2.5 point line. Like I said, I'm not putting my money on it, but I'm making the pick.
Yep. Okay. Well, you got one more. The Northwestern, the one you tried to sneak in, and I didn't have the slide right. So go ahead.
So I jumped the gun on that one. Northwestern at Washington. I'm taking Washington to cover the 10.5 points. I'm a little down on both of these teams, but kind of for different reasons. I think Northwestern, while they have a great coach who was the coach of the year last year, they just don't have a ton of talent. They're traveling all the way over to the West Coast. Washington is rebuilding, but Jed Fish, he's a darn good coach as well. I was impressed with their defense against Washington State. They played really well. They just, they're still just kind of in that rebuilding mode. And Washington State could go undefeated this year or win 10 games this year. I mean, Washington State is on fire. But Northwestern, I would say, is not. Northwestern is not that level. So at home, I like Washington to cover the 10.5. The line, I don't love the line at 10.5. This is one where If it was a 7.5, 8.5, I might even consider locking this game. Because I can see Washington winning this game by 10 points and then not, missing out on that cover. But
Right.
I'm making the pick of Washington to cover 10.5 points.
Okay. No, another team there with Northwestern. You just you worry a little bit about where that offense is going to come from. I know you watched. What was that? I think it was the week 2 game. Northwestern. I'm trying to remember who that was. Steve.
They played Duke.
Duke. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, wow, their defense is playing well. And I know you were just really questioning the quarterback play of Northwestern. And so they're a hard team to kind of bet, with or for. Because you just don't sometimes know where the points are going to come from, and that makes it tough.
That's exactly Northwestern's quarterback play has been abysmal so far from what I've seen, and the Washington defense actually held is it Mateer for Washington State, Mateer. They held him for a while in check, and that guy is good. Like he's a good dynamic quarterback. Northwestern has nothing like that. So you hit the nail on the head there. That quarterback play, the offense, I just don't trust Northwestern's offense, and I don't know if they score 10 points.
Right.
So I think it's going to be tough for Northwestern. And I hate saying that because I like Northwestern. I like their coach.
Yeah.
They're building a new stadium, and I wish them the best moving forward. Just this year, they just don't have a lot of talent.
Understood. Well, there you go. There's all Steve's picks. He has 3 locks. He's going for it. He's sticking with FSU. More power to your brother because I would have jumped ship on those mothers. But anyway, all right. Are we ready for the Mountain West, Steve? You want to switch to the Mountain West?
I'm ready. I'm ready for some West Coast football here.
West Coast football. That's what we love. So I'm going to start with, I have a Friday night game as well. I've got the upstart San Jose State Spartans starting 3-0, looking really good. Although I say they look really good, and then people complain about them in the comments. We don't give them enough love. And I'm like, well, they're 3-0. What do you want us to say? Anyway, they're playing Wazoo, Washington State Cougars, again 3-0. Somebody's must go. And the line here is 11.5, Steve. There's just so much I like about Wazoo right here. And now I'm going to get a bunch of complaints about the daggone Spartans. Oh, Jay, why you don't like the Spartans? Blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry. At 11.5, give me the Cougs. They're home. They have an overall better team on both sides of the ball. And really, San Jose State here, I hate to say this because Nash is so freaking good. But if you can stop Nash, you're probably stopping the offense of the San Jose Spartans. So you also have Emmett Brown here. He was Coug for at least for last year. Sat on the bench most of the time. He only had a little bit of playing time. And so, certainly he's going to want to show that, hey, I'm the quarterback that could be playing and yada, yada, yada. So he'll definitely come up for this game. This could be a Wazoo letdown game. They just came off 2 huge wins. They're coming off the win against Washington. They're riding high. I've seen other commenters say, well, this could be that catch you, gotcha, letdown game, if you want to say that. But I'll tell you what, I talked about Nash, and if you can shut him down, there's DBs here with the Cougs that can absolutely, in my opinion, can shut him down. Stephen Hall, the D-back, he leads the team in tackles. A D-back who leads the team in tackles for Washington State. He's one of 3 D-backs with interceptions. So they've got a good secondary. They held Texas Tech and Washington, both teams, to under 20 points. Okay, again, I'm sorry. I'm going to talk bad, if you want to call it that, of the Spartans, but Texas Tech has an overall better offense than what San Jose State does. They just do. And this defense is able to stop these offenses. I love the Cougs here, Steve. I love them so much. You know what I'm going to do?
Ooh.
Big Mountain, ice cold lock.
Boom.
There you have it. I got to lock the Cougs. I locked them earlier. And they won it for me. And, there's just too much to like about this team here. Mateer, you mentioned them earlier. You just said, I think 1 or 2 picks ago, how much you like the Cougs. I saw one write-up about the San Jose State turnover ratio here being 2.5, which is 9th in the nation and all this. And I say, oh, that's great. But, no offense, but you played Kennesaw State, You played Air Force, who has no offense almost at all, and I've been crapping on their offense. Okay, Spartans, I'm crapping on Air Force right now. They don't have an offense. You're going to hear me crap on Wyoming later. Okay, you're not the only Mountain West team I crap on. And okay, you got a good turnover ratio, but let's see what you can do against the Cougars here. I really like this game. And here's the thing, Steve, this started at 14 points. This spread it's been bet down to 11.5. And at 14.5, I'm not locking this, but at 11.5, lots of value here. This is home. Let's go Cougs. Make us some money. What do you think?
Yeah, I love the pick. I think Washington State, they're just a good all-around team. You saw their play in the Apple Cup, offense, defense, special teams. I think Matier, he's a special player. He can keep plays alive, and again, use his legs, use his arm. And I think Washington State's just a good team all around.
Absolutely.
And I have nothing against San Jose State. Nope. That Nash and Gash offense has been great, but you mentioned their schedule.
That's Steve's words for it.
Yeah, Nash and Gash. Did they also play Sacramento State? Was that the other? That
was their first game. It was Sac State, Air Force, and Kennesaw State. Yes, that's their 3-0.
Yeah, and they end up coming back and playing really good against Sacramento State. But at the beginning of that game, Sac State was giving them everything they could handle. I like this. I like Washington State to win by 2 touchdowns. I just think that they're just a better team. Now, who knows? Maybe San Jose State overperforms again, scores some extra points. But when you look at this game, what they've done so far, who they've played against, I loved Washington State to win by 2 touchdowns.
So I'm impressed with San Jose State, but I'm a Coug believer. We always say we're B believers. I'm a Coug believer this year. Let me tell you, very impressive. I know that Brent says go Cougs. This is actually family weekend. The crowd's going to be lit. So let's bring it home here. Let's win some money for the Big Mountain and go Cougs.
And honestly, I think Cougs, you got to start looking at them as a potential playoff team this year. We'll see how they do against San Jose State. And then I think if you would know this better than I, but I think they have games coming up at Fresno and at Boise here in a little while, which are not going to be easy.
Right.
But if they can get to double-digit wins, they may have a more impressive resume than whoever comes out of the Big 12 has. So I like them as a potential playoff team.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's my starting off with an ice cold lock. Got to go hot, got to go heavy. So we're going to go to Utah State, traveling east to Temple. The line is 6.5. And I'm going to go with the Aggies here at 6.5. I contemplated locking this game. I am not going to lock the game because of the travel to the east. And Temple had a good game last game against Coastal Carolina. That isn't a bad team. So I'm not uber confident in this to lock it, but I do like the 6.5. I like the Aggies to win by a touchdown. Barnes was solid here. He wasn't the original starter here for USU. Was Petrus, but he went down injured. Barnes has come back. He played solid against Utah. That's where he had been before. And even the Aggies played well against the Utah team. Utah did not beat the spread there in that game. It was fairly close-ish there kind of by the end. The Temple starting quarterback here is day-to-day. They're not 100% sure if he's going to play. So the holdback for me really is that travel to the East Coast for me to not lock this. But I like what I saw out of Barnes. Now that he's the starter, he's getting all the starting reps in during the week and during practice. And I think the Utah State defense is starting to come around a little bit more. So I like this pick. I don't like it quite enough to lock it. I know I texted Steve about this as well. I was really close to it. I'm not going to lock it, but I do like the Aggies here.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I like Utah State to win the game. And I agree, probably by about a touchdown. And the only pause, that I worry about is that travel across the country, which you and I talked about. So we'll see. I like the pick.
So the next one, Eastern Washington versus Nevada. Another one I was thinking about locking. The line is 9.5. I'm going to take Nevada, giving 9.5 against Eastern Washington. My pause comes from last week's game. 0. They put up no points against Minnesota. I had bet on Nevada. I think they are outperforming. I think they're the better team here than Eastern Washington. And I like the 9.5. I just last week gives me some pause with this team. They came out super hot against SMU, looked fantastic. But we'll see. Are they going to come back down to earth here a little bit? Are they going to still ride this wave? Lewis is really the key to this offense. So we'll see what happens here. They only had that 172 yards last week against Mini, so that's why I just can't lock this game with Nevada. Although I like the game, they should win it. But the Eagles can score, so this could be a fairly high scoring game. I'm hopeful Nevada can bounce back here and at least get the dub. And I'm going to take them with the -9.5, but some pause after last week. So that's where I'm at with the Wolfpack. So the next one, Steve, UTEP versus CSU, one of several offenses I'm going to be talking about that I have almost no confidence in. I don't know what's going on in CSU. They can't hardly score points. I mean, only scoring a touchdown last week versus the Buffs is unacceptable. You're home. You're looking to bounce back, win that game that they barely lost the year before, and nothing great about the Colorado defense. So I'm just really struggling with CSU's offense. I'm going to take them here at -9.5 because UTEP they're really struggling this year. And it looks like a lock. Early on, preseason, if you said this game was a 9.5, I would lock this game preseason. But through the first 3 weeks of this season, CSU's offense has given me no reason to think they're an excellent offense. They're not even a good offense right now. They're a struggling offense right now, and they should easily beat this spread, but that's a should. I don't know that they can. This team, even last year, was a show-me team. Show me that you can do it. I don't want to hear it from all the people in the media that say this and that, and CSU is the third or fourth best team in the daggone Mountain West. They sure as hell don't look like it right now, and that's what I keep saying. You got to show me, Rams, and they rarely ever show me. So, yes, I'm picking them at 9.5, and yes, they absolutely should win this game at 9.5. I don't like their offense. So that's where I'm at.
JY, so I went back and we talked about Colorado's defense. I did go back and look into that game a little bit. I watched some extended highlights, looked at some stats. And what I've said before about Colorado's defense is Travis Hunter and just 10 random dudes out there. Now, Travis Hunter in that game was all over the place. He had an interception. He was moving around and locking down, even playing good on offense, but locking down Colorado State's wide receivers. The dude was just an absolute terror on defense last week in that game. So I agree with you here. I mean, they need to show me. They need to show all of us. And honestly, this might be the week playing UTEP, but not a very good UTEP team, where they might show it. I don't know if that's enough to really convince you moving forward, but I think they might be able to show something this week.
Yes, I agree. It won't be enough to convince me against this team. But I'll tell you what, if they don't show me something, I'll never be able to have any confidence in them the rest of the season until they have multiple weeks of just massive offensive accomplishments. Like, this was supposed to be one of the better offenses in the Mountain West. And as you know, I had hesitations on them from the very beginning, and I still do. I just don't understand what's going on there in Colorado State.
And
all right, another offense. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say one last point, and you said coming into the season that this could be a season for their coach. Is it Norvell, Jay Norvell?
Norvell, yeah.
Yeah, where he has to show something this year. He could be on the hot seat, and so far they haven't shown much.
And I'm starting to see a little bit of that in the press. He came in with a big name. He brought on all these players. He's going to do all this stuff for the Rams, and they really haven't had much success here with him. And I don't know. I don't know what his leash is like. I haven't looked into his contract or anything like that. But I'll tell you what, it's one of those. You better put it on the field or your leash gets cut real quick. All right, another offense, Steve. You know where I'm going next. Wyoming versus North Texas. The line's 8.5, and I've got to take North Texas here, -8.5. I don't know where the Pokes offense comes from. Whaley's not going to be back. They're really struggling to run. They're struggling to do anything. You would hope they would be able to do something. They're struggling to run the ball. They can barely pass the ball. Can they score 2 touchdowns? I don't think they get into the 20s in this game. And North Texas, their offenses look fantastic early in the season. I mean, they will be putting up some points. I don't think YO is going to be close to staying with them, even if YO's defense is average. The Mean Green is a strong offense. Because they're going to be out there all the damn time. YO's defense is going to be out there all the damn time. So, and I get it. North Texas, they sit at 129th in terms of defensive yards per game. Hey, you can go up in rank. I'm going to crap on my Pokes. You can go up in rank just by playing the Pokes right now because their offense is ridiculous. So I got to take the 8.5 with North Texas. It's at home. It's down in North Texas. And, I'll tell you what, YO's just like CSU. I got to see something before I can even remotely start to bet on these guys. And without Whaley, their only hope is that Whaley comes back. He can bust open a couple big runs, which then opens up some passing and the stars align like a miracle. But there's not much here to be loving here. So I'm on North Texas, Steve. I got to do it.
Yeah, and something you've been talking about on Twitter, on X, quite a bit is the Wyoming offense with Svoboda. The coaches it's the coach's job to put the players in the best position
Right.
to be successful, and they're not doing that so far. So I mean, part of it's on the player, but at some point the coaches, they need to put him in better positions. The dude he's not a drop back passer, at least this point in his career. I say let him run, unleash him. Almost every play should be designed bootlegs at this point, where you
Right.
put him out there, give him one read. Okay, if this guy's open, you throw it to him. If not, you tuck and run. They got to do something different if they're going to find some offense.
Right. Agree. And so far, I haven't seen much that they're willing to do that right now. So there's no reason for me to be betting on Wyoming. So here we go, Steve. This is the game of the season for you. It's your 2 favorite freaking teams. The Fresno State Bulldogs going to the University of New Mexico. You love the Bulldogs, and deep down you love the freaking Lobos. You love them. The line is 14.5. Of course, the favorite here being the Bulldogs, and I'm going to take the favorite minus 14.5 with Fresno. Some people might look at this and be like, wow, that's an easy line. I don't think it is at all. I'm a little hesitant with this line. New Mexico upset the Bulldogs last year. Absolutely. That means the Bulldogs are not going to take the Lobos lightly this year, but this is a better Lobo team than they were last year. This Dampier kid looks really good on offense. Dual threat, can do everything. And so I do like the Bulldogs to win this game and potentially cover this by maybe 17 or something. But UNM can put up points. I mean, this team can score. So I'm nowhere close to a lock. That might surprise you, Steve, at 14.5. I'm really not. They're traveling down to Albuquerque. The Lobos are better. Broncos got this team playing better. And the line just isn't. It's not there for me to go much more than just taking a pick here. So I'll take the Bulldogs minus 14.5.
Makes a lot of sense.
So the next one, Portland State versus Boise State. Humongous line, 41.5, Steve. I'm taking Boise State minus 41.5. Everybody knows they can score points, and they will score points. But similar to Ohio State, where you had a huge spread there, this one I think is even bigger, over 40 for crying out loud. Can they do it? Yeah, Boise can do it, and that's why I'm going to pick them. But man, that's a huge spread, and you never want to do anything with a lock when you're this type of silliness in terms of a spread, no matter what the teams are, because it just doesn't take much to be 35, 38, 40, and you don't hit that spread. So, this is a FCS okay-ish school, kind of struggled out of the gate versus one of the G6 complete powers looking to get into that CFP spot. So yeah, I think Boise's the easy pick, but it's nowhere close to a lock for me because it's a huge thinking spread. So let's go to Northern Iowa versus Hawaii. Northern Iowa actually played fairly well this season so far. And, as we talked about in the review here, Steve, the Warriors kind of just up and down, kind of struggling to figure out who they are, what they are. They're not the offense that I thought they were going to be, at least so far, struggling a little bit to put up points. Yeah, they had a good showing there versus UCLA, but a UCLA team that I know you've been down on. Then they go to Sam Houston last week and just not a good showing at all. So I am going to take Hawaii minus 8.5 because it is at home. They got to travel to Hawaii. That's not an easy game for Northern Iowa to go to, but I do think it's going to be a close game. And so I'm going to go back to where I thought the Warriors were in the preseason. I like them here. They should be able to put up the points. I'm hopeful that they do. So I'm going to take them to cover. But for our friend Chris, he always wants an over-under. So I'm also going to give him an over-under on this game. 48.5. I'm taking the under on this game. So under 48.5, Northern Iowa versus Hawaii. And I will always have at least one over and under every season or every week. Mainly because I like to pick them every so often, and because Chris asked for them. So I have to throw one out there. Hawaii, just their offense hasn't been good enough for me right now to think they're able to put up a ton of points. I don't think Northern Iowa is going to put up a ton of points. So I like the under 48.5. Last one, Steve, same one that you picked, the Purdue versus Ohio. See, I write it down as OSU. I should write down Oregon State. Purdue versus Oregon State, the Beavs University, minus 5.5. I'm with you. I'm taking the Beavs here, minus 5.5. This should be a convincing win here for Oregon State. I'm not going to lock it. I knew Steve was going to lock it, so I'm going to stay off it. I'll let Steve have the lock, but I'm going to pick it with him. Steve, I think this is now maybe we're 5 of 6 in games that we can pick together that we've agreed on the picks. I think we're either 5 or 6 or 6 or 7, something like that. And I think you have them all right. I, on the other hand, was wrong on one of them. So you're up on me by 1, and I can't get it back when I'm picking the same damn team as you. But I like the Beavers here at minus 5.5.
Yeah, obviously I liked it. That was a game I locked. I do want to go back. There was one thing when you were talking about the Boise and Portland State game. So there's something very important to say, and that is Genty for Heisman.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, and honestly, this is a good game where you can run up some stats. That's part of a good Heisman Trophy campaign. He had a great game against Oregon. Showed what he can do against a very solid team. But when you play these bottom feeders, that's a good time to run up your stats. So I'm hoping they're able to do that. I mean, what do you have? 6 touchdowns against Georgia Southern.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and get another 6 touchdowns in the first half this week, and then put that baby to bed.
We'll just break his own record. Go for 7, man. RG3 can text it out again, and we're all good. So James says the dog defense is going to will travel, and I'm just getting caught up here. A lot of people thinking Boise's just going to crush Portland State. Portland State can't tackle. Of course, I didn't mention. I know that Brent brings up the whole whooping cough issue. So Portland State had to cancel their last game because the team had a bit of a case of whooping cough. They do say that Boise's going to play this. The game is going to be played between Boise and Portland. And so, yeah, we'll see how well Portland does with getting over their whooping cough. And I get it. I think they are going to roll here. And if you guys want to lock it, go for it. You can put your money on Boise. Anything over 40, I really am very, very hesitant to lock on it. Any big spread like that. Silly things can happen. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. And I apologize, Steve. I know you're always the one to get out the Genty for Heisman chant. So I appreciate you reminding everyone of that.
Got to do it.